Hello and welcome to the channel, The Art of Healing. You will have seen me do some tarot readings recently on fairly broad subjects, and I had considered reading on politics and had stayed away from it because there are quite a few good readers who read on politics, and I wasn't sure that my voice would add anything particularly valuable to that mix. But waking up today to the news of the full-scale invasion of the Ukraine, the potential of war in that region, I felt a real need to stop what I was doing and read. So here we are, about to read on the situation as it's breaking now. First thing I want to know is this an act of aggression or is this the launch of a full-scale war? And if it is a full-scale war, what does that mean? Where will it go? How will it expand? Who is in danger? We need to know how the rest of the world will react to this, and we need to understand consequences. So I don't know a great deal about that region beyond following in the news the recent events, wondering what would happen, watching Putin build up the forces and consider attacking. But now the attacks come, so I'm going to jump in blind. Yeah, the Ukraine is important strategically, and it carries 5% of the mineral wealth of Europe, which is quite considerable. It's also the biggest country in Europe, and it also wants to join NATO, which of course Russia does not want. Certainly doesn't want a neighbour joining NATO when it refuses to. So let's not talk too much about this, let's just jump in and find out. What is this? Is this an act of aggression? Is Putin showing off his strength? And if so, will it work, and will he escalate to war? Here we go. Right, so here we have Putin juggling everything he's got. Putin showing force, Putin being the strongman of Europe, or I think he thinks the strongman of the world, and Putin also playing with fire because he doesn't necessarily have the resources to carry out what he wants to do. But we have covering that card secrets. So there are things going on here that we don't know. There are things going on that the leaders of the world will know, and there are things going on that some will not know. So there's an agenda here. So let's look more. Okay. I see this as a major act of folly on Russia's part. There is anger and a need to make a political statement heading this, but beneath it there is diplomacy and clear thinking. So let us hope as we read that the diplomacy and clear thinking is the solution. A lot of work has gone into this. It's not come quickly, and at the minute it's all a bit dazzling and frightening because the choices look so grim. But let's just see how grim are they. Okay. So this is very much Putin's baby. This is Putin again showing strength. This is Putin flouting international law. But international law will react, and react quite swiftly and quite severely, and we'll look at that in a minute into a bit more detail. But I can see there is still room for diplomacy, and when I started this reading I hadn't honestly thought that. I thought diplomacy was a thing of the past. But the solution is, at the minute, diplomatic. So let's put this reading away and perhaps ask on that more specifically. So can we find out, please, what a diplomatic solution for the Ukraine and for Russia might look like? Let's give these a good shuffle. Oh, that wants to come out, so we'll have it. Okay, so we have a changed viewpoint as central to this reading. So can diplomacy change views? Either way. Is it Putin's view changed? Is it Ukraine's view changed? Is it our view changed? So, here we go. Okay, direct action. more diplomacy, more lies, more shoring up of wealth, more activity and action. Yeah, okay. That doesn't look great. So diplomatic efforts are still going to happen. Things will ease and then revert. But whatever is going on, and there will be people offering peace all over the show and pretending, but there is something duplicitous underneath this, and we saw that in the last reading as well. So we don't know the full picture here. There are things going on that are hidden from us and from probably some of the major players. There is a shoring up of wealth going on. There is multiple attacks, or multiple activity on behalf of both fronts as this escalates. Diplomacy becomes more heavy-hitting and becomes perhaps retaliation, but it's slightly knee-jerk retaliation, so it's not necessarily doing any good. There is money behind this, and I'm seeing dark money. So if you look to the darker dealings of Russian wealth, this is driving something here. There will, I think, be an offer of peace, and it'll be very emotional and be well received, but it's not real, and it does not lead to where we want it to lead. It imprisons everybody. So there is suffering all round. There is suffering from Russia, there is suffering from Ukraine, and there is suffering as this war ripples out across us. So the future is not looking short-term rosy. I think we're in for a long haul here, and I think that what is driving it is money. Well, show me a war that isn't driven by money. I'm going to ask now, will this expand? So how should Europe be reacting in terms of readiness for war? You know, we've probably heard bandied in the press now, is this the beginning of World War III? But let's ask. In fact, let's ask that directly. Is this potentially the Third World War? And the Third World War will be the most disastrous of all if it is. So let us keep clear and compassionate thoughts right now for everybody who may be impacted here. So please, is this the Third World War? I don't think it is, no. I think this is driven by Russia feeling left out, feeling not welcome at the table, despite the size of Mr. Putin's new table. They don't feel part of the international community, and let's not go into that right now because there are so many reasons. So this is spilt milk. Spilt milk is then fueled by the need to have more money, and Russia does not have immense wealth. They have immense power, or think they have power, but they do not have immense wealth, certainly compared to the G7. They're way down the bottom. They are aggressing, and they are building smoke screens around their own problems as they seek to find solutions through annexing other countries. This Ukraine at the minute. They are tied to old ways of doing things, the negativity, the absolute show of aggression that may be more show than reality, because they may not have the resources to keep this up. But again, they will be offered solutions, and they will either refuse them outright or they will choose not to see those solutions. Diplomacy is not going to stop. It's going to carry on through this mess as it escalates. There is a need to step back from all parties before we just end up in a full-scale argument that will spread to the world. There is a real need for international governments to step in and say something, and there is a need for the truth to come out and for retaliation. Now, I would not, as an absolute peace lover and someone who can't bear the thought that this could even happen to us, today would not want to see any kind of retaliation that causes hurt or pain to anyone. But I'm afraid we are going to be at a point where retaliation is going to be absolutely necessary, and it is not going to be kind or pretty. Let's hope that the best solution is minimal pain and anxiety and loss, but I think we need to prepare ourselves for something quite brutal. Now I'm going to read briefly, I hope it's brief because I don't want his energy, on Mr. Putin himself, who is of course playing the innocent at the minute and pretending to be misunderstood. So I have with me the Toth deck, which I don't normally read with. I like it, but I don't read with it because it's dark. And I think he deserves it, so let's give him a go with the Toth deck, shall we? So what can you tell us about Vladimir Putin, and particularly in how he and his thinking are generating potentially a global disaster? So, Vlad. Okay. He is tired of being the nice guy, and bizarre as it may seem, that's how he sees himself. He sees himself as someone uniting and someone who is prudent and careful. But everything's changing. He's changing, and he's forcing the change. He is driven by the need to win this, so he's out for it. But he is underpinned by cruelty. And let me show you this card, because it doesn't really leave much doubt as to what cruelty is. Unpleasant. Dominion, so he wants territory, he wants the resources. Woo. Okay. He is not the person we see on the surface. So that very calm, cold man is not quite that, I'm afraid to say. There is a degree of sickness beneath him and debauchery that is not pleasant. He is at all costs determined to win this. He is hungry for more power, and he's going after power. That's his real desire. And he sees himself as a global leader, more so than he is already. He sees himself as the prince of the world. And this prince is one with a sword that is wielded without any particular discretion. So this prince hacks away to get what it wants. So as far as Putin is concerned, as a man and a character who is driving this war, there's a lot to worry about here. So the question, I suppose, is how do you change his mind? Or if you can't change his mind, how do you simply stop him? So I'm going to do one more quick reading with the cards I was using. I just want to look at Russian resource and see, in fact, if they can afford this, if they have the weapon resources, if they can hold out long enough, if the world shuts them out with sanctions. And let's just see. So please, can Russia sustain this attack? No. No, in a word, they can't. This is all bravado and show right now. This is the knight riding out to conquer the forces. But there will be, through diplomacy and through retaliation, a point at which we take the balance back in this fight. Underneath it, the world is juggling frantically, trying to find a solution. And Putin, like that proverbial duck on the water, is paddling madly out of sight. But we are looking at a disaster. We're looking at a real crisis. And the crisis is driven by greed. There is, however, in this reading, a lot to hope for. So I'm getting the sun, which illuminates and shows us the truth. I'm getting the star, which gives us hope. Also suggests the United States might actually act and not just talk. So there is abundance, there is celebration, so there's things to hope for. There is the world looking on. Don't know if that means the world is acting or just looking on. But the end result of this, after the catastrophe, is complete transformation. So let's ask ourselves, and put this in the comments if you have an opinion on this. Is this a necessary moment for transformation in the region? Does Russia need to be brought to its knees to change? Is it our business to change Russia? But change is coming. Huge change. I'm going to just put a card on that last one just to clarify. What does that change mean, please? Is this good change, bad change, necessary change, karmic change? Show me. Okay. It will force Russia back to the negotiating table, back to a kinder place of being and thinking and acting, and a more responsible leader of its peoples. So that's optimistic. I don't see it making a great change to Russia quickly. I think this is a transformation over a period of time, but let's read on. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of international opinion legally. I think there may eventually be things in the European Court of Law or other courts of law at a higher level. And it is going to generate change, but change will come and change will go. So we are on the wheel of fortune here. So anything could happen. Now remember, when we read cards like this, I'm reading the energy of today. So Ukraine has been attacked this very morning. If I read in 3 weeks' time, I might find different energies. So take these, and remember these are my opinion, and only my opinion. I simply read the energy I get from the cards. So take this as you will. And if you want to argue with me in the comments, argue with me. If you want to agree, agree, whatever. We all have an opinion and we all have a right to express it. So I will leave this there, I think. The summary, as I would see it, is that Russia is led by someone who is in a pretty bad place in terms of how we'd like to think of humanity being. But those of us who are humans alongside Mr. Putin, let's keep our compassion going. Let's keep our positivity going. Let's not condemn. But let's try to understand and see if, by understanding Putin, the West can possibly find a way out of this by finding his Achilles heel, really. So, friends, we're a way off this. I don't think it's going anywhere soon, and I think there are going to be deeply unpleasant things. Is it going to be World War III? I don't think so yet, but the energy may change. I do think that the Baltic states are looking at their own situations because they could well be next. Who knows where this man will stop. But let's hope that diplomacy and retaliation can reverse this, and let's hope that the reverse is strong enough to cause Mr. Putin and his allies to rethink, back off, and perhaps change the way they think. So, thank you very much for joining me today. It's a shame to have to read on this when there are bigger things to read on in terms of human importance. But right now this matters, and it's a critical time for us all. So, if you've got anything from it, do feel free to comment underneath. It's great to read your comments. Like, if you'd like to like the video, or subscribe if you want to hear more. I'll be back mostly every week, and happy to hear what you have to say, and happy to respond and read on what you want me to read on. So, until we meet each other again, thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you soon.